Oda Nobunaga threw an insane gamble at Okahazama. He shattered the Anegawa clan, and he locked in an alliance with Tokugawa Ieyasu. Then Nobunaga's eyes turned to one place, Kyoto. The Sengoku era was chaos, but Kyoto was not just a capital. Kyoto was where legitimacy still breathed. You could raise an army in the provinces, but if Kyoto did not recognize you, you looked like a big bandit gang. If your name was spoken in Kyoto, your reputation could change overnight. And between Nobunaga and Kyoto stood two obstacles: the Azai clan and the Saito clan. Nobunaga married his younger sister Oichi to Azai Nagamasa, the daimyo of the Azai. That marriage created an alliance. The Saito clan had once been friendly to Nobunaga too, because the daimyo of Saito had been Saito Dosan, Nobunaga's father-in-law. You already heard Dosan's name earlier, and he was the living symbol of Gekkokujo. Dosan started as an oil merchant. He climbed through money, networks, politics, betrayal at the perfect moment, and raw force. Not head-on. He slipped into Mino, split it, and swallowed it. That is why people called him the Viper of Mino. But in 1556, a succession conflict ripped the Saito house open. Dosan fought his own son, Saito Yoshitatsu, at the Battle of Nagaragawa. Yoshitatsu won. Dosan lost on the battlefield and died. The man who swallowed Mino through Gekkokujo was finished by another Gekkokujo, Sun's coup. And when Dosan died, everything flipped. The Saito clan turned hostile to Nobunaga. One of Nobunaga's strongest backers was gone. As Oda Nobunaga prepared to march into Mino, the lands of the Saito clan, he made one crucial move first. He secured an alliance with Takeda Shingen, the powerful ruler of Shinano province, which bordered Mino directly. In the Sengoku period, when two domains shared a border, neutrality almost never lasted. You either fought until one side collapsed, or you made an alliance before the swords were drawn. The alliance between Oda Nobunaga and Takeda Shingen was not built on trust or friendship. It was built on cold calculation. Nobunaga needed freedom to move forward. His goal was the center of Japan, the road toward Kyoto and political legitimacy. To do that, his rear had to be secure. Shingen, on the other hand, wanted something just as valuable. With his western border quiet, he could focus entirely on his life and death struggle against Uesugi Kenshin to the north. Both men got exactly what they wanted. This agreement is known as the Kōbi Alliance. In 1561, Nobunaga attacked the Saito head-on, but the war did not go the way he wanted. Until 1564, he had no clear breakthrough. The biggest problem was Inabayama Castle. The Saito main fortress sat high on a mountain. Nobunaga hit it again and again, but it would not crack. So Nobunaga changed the plan. He decided that a frontal push would not be enough, and he gave the order to a man he had begun to trust, Hashiba Hideyoshi. Later, this man would be known as Toyotomi Hideyoshi. But until the moment his name changed, we call him Hashiba Hideyoshi. Now, we need to pause for a moment and look at one of the most important figures of the Sengoku era, Hashiba Hideyoshi. Hideyoshi was not originally one of Nobunaga's Kashindan. As a boy, Hideyoshi left home and drifted to Totomi. There, he served like a low servant under a warrior household tied to the Anegawa clan. But he could not secure a real place there. So around 1558, he returned to Awari and entered Nobunaga clan through an introduction. And he did not start as a general. He started at the bottom. He handled Nobunaga's sandals, worked in the kitchens, and helped repair Kiyosu Castle. People had one early image of Hideyoshi: fast eyes, fast hands, not just doing what he was told, but doing one step better than the Lord expected. According to later accounts, others took the same coin and came back with cheap junk. Hideyoshi took the same coin and brought back the most useful items he could find. There is a famous sandals story. On a cold winter day, Nobunaga put on his sandals and felt something strange. They were warm. Only later did he learn why. Hideyoshi had warmed them inside his clothing. Some say that story was invented later, but every Hideyoshi story points to the same conclusion. He did not rise because of a noble birth. He rose because when opportunity came, he proved himself in a way others could not. That is why Hideyoshi became Japan's symbol of rising from nothing to everything. At Inabayama Castle, a mountain fortress, Hideyoshi did not start by breaking the walls. He started by breaking people. Threats, bribes, pressure. He shook the Saito Kashindan from the inside. One by one, men slipped away, and he turned them. Inside the castle, Saito Kashindan began watching each other. Trust started dying. Then Hideyoshi built a forward base right under the castle. Sunomata Fortress. Later accounts said he raised it in a single night, under a storm of arrows. In reality, it was more likely pre-cut timber, assembled fast over several days. But the point is this: a legend like that does not appear for no reason. Hideyoshi was dangerous because he made impossible things look possible. And a fortress rising on enemy ground was a psychological punch. It told the defenders, "We are not leaving." It showed them, "We could build a home on your throat." After Sunomata was completed, Hideyoshi learned something critical. There was a route into the rear side of Inabayama Castle. Hidden way in, Hideyoshi reported it to Nobunaga, and Nobunaga gave him the order. Go in through that path. Slip inside. In the dark night, Hideyoshi and a small force climbed the steep northern slope. They slipped into the castle and set fire to a gunpowder storehouse. Blast, flames, and inside the walls, panic exploded. In that chaos, Hideyoshi opened the gates, and Nobunaga's army poured in. In September 1567, Inabayama Castle fell. The Saito daimyo, Saito Tatsuoki, abandoned the fortress and fled. After that, he vanished from the center stage of the Sengoku story. The Saito clan disappeared from the war map. Mino fell into Nobunaga's hands. For his achievement, Hideyoshi was granted part of the former Saito lands in Mino. He became responsible for forward bases like Sunomata Fortress. And inside Nobunaga's army, his rise became impossible to ignore. Now Nobunaga had the road to Kyoto, and he had the power to walk it. But he was still missing one last piece: a reason to enter Kyoto. If he marched into Kyoto with no justification, he became an illegitimate invader. Then nearby daimyo might stop calculating and unite against him at once. Nobunaga understood that risk. So before he drew the sword, he needed justification and legitimacy. In 1567, as if fate delivered it, a man appeared with that gift. The Shogun, Ashikaga Yoshiaki, was killed in a coup driven by Miyoshi forces. Yoshiteru's younger brother, Ashikaga Yoshiaki, had been hiding as a monk. Now he returned to the world and came to Nobunaga. Even when the shogun's real power weakened, the title still mattered. Yoshiaki asked for something bold: drive out the Miyoshi power holding Kyoto, remove the fake shogun they supported, and place me, the rightful heir of the Ashikaga name, on the shogun's seat. He was basically saying this: take me to Kyoto, make me shogun, and you take the legitimacy. For Nobunaga, this was a gift. The justification he had waited for walked into his hands. Nobunaga treated Yoshiaki with great respect, and in 1568, Nobunaga marched toward Kyoto with Yoshiaki at the front. By now, Nobunaga had real talent beside him, battle-hardened men built for war and control. Shibata Katsui, a brutal commander who smashed the front line. Niwa Nagahide, a practical manager who mastered logistics and supply. Takigawa Kazumasu, a fixer who stabilized new lands and turned them into springboards. Akechi Mitsuhide, a sharp mind who negotiated, planned, and when needed, cut like a blade. They became known as Nobunaga's core commanders, often called the Oda Four. Sometimes Hideyoshi was added, and they were called the Oda Five. Around this time, Nobunaga's son Nobutada also began appearing on battlefields, growing as the heir. As Nobunaga marched toward Kyoto, he entered southern Omi, present-day Shiga Prefecture. There, he met the Rokkaku clan. The Rokkaku had long pride as guardians of that region. Nobunaga sent a messenger and asked them to open the road. He said he was marching to install Yoshiaki as the rightful shogun. Rokkaku Yoshikata refused. Nobunaga sent another messenger. This time, Yoshikata claimed illness and would not even meet him. So Nobunaga split his army into three forces and struck the Rokkaku lands. The first clash erupted at Mitsukuri Castle. 2,000 attacked from the north, 3,000 attacked from the east. Mitsukuri Castle was strong, steep slopes, dense forest. By late afternoon, the attacking force could have been pushed back in danger. And this was where Hideyoshi stepped in again. They had already fought for over 7 hours. It was the first day of battle. Hideyoshi judged that the defenders would be careless about a night assault. Attacking a mountain castle at night was close to madness, but Hideyoshi was different. He prepared hundreds of torches. On one signal, Oda's troops lit them all at once and charged. The defenders trusted their walls and neglected night defense. That night, Mitsukuri Castle fell, practically overnight. When the garrison at Watayama Castle heard Mitsukuri Castle had fallen, the Rokkaku troops panicked. They ran without even fighting. Rokkaku Yoshikata expected a long war. Instead, 2 castles broke in less than a day. He was shocked. That night, he fled with his son Yoshiharu and his household. Once the daimyo disappeared, the remaining local forts surrendered quickly. According to the Jesuit missionary Frois, Nobunaga army stormed and seized castles that seemed impossible to take. His sudden decision and bold action stunned the lords of Yamashiro, Setsu, Kawachi, Izumi, Yamato, and Tanba. They watched strongholds fall so easily, and they submitted. Luis Frois was a Jesuit missionary who lived in Japan and recorded what he witnessed firsthand, later compiling those observations into a work known today as Historia de Japan. With the cause of installing the rightful shogun, Nobunaga cleared resistance on the road, and he pushed on to Kyoto. In September 1568, Oda Nobunaga entered Kyoto. He quickly suppressed the Miyoshi forces who had shaken the center. He succeeded in placing Yoshiaki on the shogun's seat. And once he installed the shogun, Nobunaga began building the legitimacy he wanted in the capital. By taking Kyoto, Nobunaga also naturally gained strong influence over the Kinai, the heartland long tied to the emperor and the imperial court. And once Nobunaga held that center, the smaller and mid-level local lords nearby fell under his influence, almost automatically. Kinai was not a simple place. It was a tangled region where politics, money, and military power all overlapped. To rule Kinai, winning battles was not enough. You needed legitimacy, a reason people could accept, and sharp political instinct. That is why every daimyo wanted Kinai, but most hesitated to step forward. They dreamed of the center, but they feared what the center could do to them. If Nobunaga secured Kinai completely, every daimyo in Japan had to watch him. They had to read his mood and measure their next moves carefully. But if Nobunaga failed to hold Kinai, the opposite could happen. All of Japan could turn on him. Ruling Kinai was like a declaration. I am now on Japan's main stage. It was like becoming Tenkabito, not just a winner of battles, but the man standing at the center, where Japan had to watch. Back in Kyoto, Nobunaga rebuilt and organized things smoothly, with no major danger at first. Then he left Kyoto for a short time to tighten his supply lines and logistics. He returned to Gifu, his main base in Mino. And while Nobunaga was away, when he let his guard down for just a moment, a threat suddenly appeared. The Honkokuji Incident. At the time, the shogun's residence had burned down. So Yoshiaki used Honkokuji Temple as a temporary palace. Miyoshi remnants exploited Nobunaga's absence. They attacked Honkokuji where Yoshiaki was staying. Yoshiaki and his guard force barricaded inside and fought a desperate defense. A relief force arrived the next day. Caught between attacks from both sides, the Miyoshi remnants withdrew. If Yoshiaki had died there, Nobunaga could have lost everything he had built in Kyoto. Legitimacy, justification, the whole setup, all at once. After hearing the news, Nobunaga rushed back through heavy snow. It was said he traveled with only around 10 men, cutting a 3-day journey down to 2. After the Honkokuji incident, Nobunaga decided the shogun was too exposed inside a temple. So he built a massive new shogunal residence, Nijo Castle, right in the heart of Kyoto. Absolutely thrilled with this new castle and Nobunaga's unwavering loyalty, Yoshiaki offered him some incredibly high court titles. Nobunaga refused. Instead, he asked for control over 3 key places: Sakai, Otsu, and Kusatsu. To Yoshiaki, Nobunaga may have looked like a man without greed, but the truth was the opposite. To Nobunaga, Yoshiaki was a key that opened a bigger board. Nobunaga knew it was not enough to simply hold a high title. His ambition was different. He believed the next core of war was money and matchlock guns. Sakai, Otsu, and Kusatsu were commercial and trade hubs. Through trade routes, Portuguese matchlock guns entered Japan. And with strong cash flow, Nobunaga could mass-produce them. Nobunaga also reformed markets, so merchants could trade more freely. This was Rakuichi-Rakuza, a policy that loosened regulation and monopoly to revive commerce. Before that, one guild held special privileges. Those privileges often existed under noble families, temples, and shrines. If you were outside the guild, you could be blocked from doing business at all. Nobunaga's reforms flipped that system. In the Sengoku era, income was measured in koku, a rice yield unit used as a standard of wealth. Using a rough conversion, in one comparison, using a 1550 baseline before Nobunaga's Kyoto rise, the figures were listed like this. Takeda Shingen, 533,000 koku, about 176.3 million pound. Wasugi Kinshin, 499,000 koku, about 165 million pound. Hojo Ujiesu, 707,000 koku, about 233.8 million pound. Oda Nobunaga, 571,000 koku, about 188.8 million pound. But in the same comparison for around 1570, after Nobunaga entered Kyoto, the list went like this. Takeda Shingen, 883,000 koku, about 292 million pound. Wasugi Kinshin, 898,000 koku, about 297 million pound. Hojo Ujiesu, 1,323,000 koku, about 437.5 million pound. Oda Nobunaga, 3,033,000 koku, about 1,002.9 million pound. With overwhelming economic power, Nobunaga was moving toward the position of the strongest man in the Sengoku era. And as Nobunaga dug deeper into Kyoto's power core, Shogun Yoshiaki began to understand the truth. He was the shogun on the surface, but in reality, he survived by leaning on Nobunaga's military power and administration. He was turning into a puppet. Some stories say Nobunaga also broke Kyoto etiquette on purpose. He shook them deliberately so everyone could feel it. Here, the rules had changed. Eventually, Yoshiaki tried to pull power from outside to restrain Nobunaga. He sent secret messages to daimyo across Japan. At the same time, Nobunaga did not know this. He sent official orders under the shogun's name. Come to Kyoto and swear loyalty to the shogun. So daimyo received two messages at once. An official command to come and submit, and a secret request to resist Nobunaga. Near Kyoto, one major lord refused to come. Asakura Yoshikage of Echizen. In April 1570, Nobunaga raised an army in Kyoto with the justification of punishing Asakura. Back in 1568, when Nobunaga marched to install Yoshiaki, he asked Yoshikage to support the march. Yoshikage did not respond. Since then, Nobunaga waited for the right time and reason to crush him. Nobunaga pushed straight into Tsuruga. Tetsutsuyama Castle fell quickly. Kanegasaki Castle surrendered and opened the road. Nobunaga advanced fast, almost unstoppable, and then the punch came from behind. Azai Nagamasa, the marriage ally, betrayed him. Reports said Azai would strike Nobunaga's rear. Nobunaga was suddenly in a death trap, deep in enemy territory. Before the betrayal, Azai Nagamasa seemed unusually civilized for the Sengoku era. He had a reputation for honor. Beyond the marriage to Nobunaga's sister Oichi, Nobunaga personally liked Nagamasa as a man, so the betrayal felt like a knife from family. But Nagamasa also had his reason. Since his grandfather's time, the Azai received major support from the Asakura to build power in their domain. He could not cut that debt of loyalty overnight. Nobunaga was furious, but he made a quick decision. He understood that fighting now meant death. So he ordered an immediate retreat. From Tsuruga, he fled through Wakasa toward Kyoto. And to make that retreat possible, Hideyoshi and Akechi Mitsuhide took the rear guard at the risk of his life. That life-gambling withdrawal became known as the Kanegasaki Retreat. During the retreat, an assassin waited in the woods. Sugatani Zenjubo, a famed marksman. He fired 2 matchlock shots, hit Nobunaga, and even knocked him off his horse. In the Sengoku era, a daimyo's armor could be as thick as Western plate. That armor saved Nobunaga. He survived with only a scratch. If the shot had struck an unprotected spot, Nobunaga could have died on the spot, and Sengoku history might have changed in an instant. Sugetani Zenjubo was captured about 3 years later, and he was executed in a brutal way, a saw execution called Nokogiribiki. Nobunaga barely made it back alive. He returned to Kyoto, rebuilt his forces, and prepared the counter-strike. With Tokugawa Ieyasu at his side, Nobunaga marched into Omi province, determined to crush Azai Nagamasa and Asakura Yoshikage. The Omi region that Nobunaga's army advanced into was one of the most important commercial centers of the Sengoku era. It held Lake Biwa, the largest lake in Japan. With ships, people, and supplies could move in bulk. Japan had so many mountains that travel routes often broke up and became isolated. So commerce developed by mixing lake routes, rivers, and sea routes, not just land roads. Omi was a key hub of water transport. That environment produced the Omi merchants. They traveled across Japan doing business. They reached Kyoto, Osaka, and even Edo later. That tradition continued into the modern era, and many Japanese companies traced roots to Omi. In August 1570, the Nobunaga-Ieyasu alliance faced the Azai-Asakura alliance at the Anegawa River. Nobunaga and Ieyasu had about 28,000 men. Azai and Asakura had about 18,000 men. Originally, Nobunaga faced Asakura and Ieyasu faced Azai, but Nobunaga's desire for revenge against Azai made him switch positions. He chose to face Azai himself. The battle began early in the morning. The opening was not what you would expect. The Oda side was pushed back by the Azai. Azai elite long spear infantry surged forward. The Oda formation tore. Units collapsed one after another. Nobunaga felt it. One more push, and everything could end at once. But on the other side, Ieyasu's army smashed the Asakura quickly, and at the center of that push was a monster commander, Honda Tadakatsu. He was famous for a staghorn helmet. His spear was nearly 20 feet long. He plowed through the Asakura line, killing as he advanced. His strength was so extreme that people said this. Honda Tadakatsu was too much for Ieyasu to deserve. As Ieyasu drove the Asakura back, the Azai rear flank was exposed. The Azai forces could not hold any longer. They fell back. That clash became known as the Battle of Anegawa. Nobunaga won at Anegawa, but he could not wipe out the Azai and Asakura. His own army had taken heavy losses, so he could not chase them recklessly. Nobunaga stationed Hideyoshi in northern Omi to block the Azai and Asakura choke points. Then Nobunaga returned to Kyoto to prepare for the next battle. And while his army was exhausted, other forces began forming a net around him. An encirclement around Nobunaga was starting to take shape. If you enjoyed this episode of our Sengoku series, make sure to drop a like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. It gives me huge energy to keep making these videos. I'll see you again in next episode of our Japan Sengoku series. Thank you.